What's up? Hey, hello everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 38, Edge of Extinction, Episode 2. Could have had a double right winning boot list if Kelley Wentworth went home this week. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and I'm very glad that Kelley Wentworth did not go home this week because that would have ruined my boot list. So, Rachel.
Yeah, I was conflicted either way. I'm like, oh, I really like Kelley, but then I felt so bad for Keith. And I'm like, either way, this is just so depressing.
Yeah, I felt bad for Keith too, but I think that in the end they did make the right decision keeping Kelley over Keith because like they were saying, Keith is just really bad at challenges. Like they had to drag him through this challenge basically. And like I feel like they like to do a lot of water-based challenges when there's more people because it's less to set up on land. So
Yeah. I feel like for the people that are saying, like, oh, Keith should have been voted out just because, like, he can't swim, that sort of bothers me. It's like, everyone is saying, oh, you're going to go on Survivor. Why didn't he learn how to swim kind of thing? But then it's also like, Keith was talking about his upbringing. He probably did not have a lot of opportunities to get like swim lessons or private swim lessons. So I feel like you cannot just be like, oh, Keith deserves to go home because he doesn't know how to swim. But like a lot of people don't have the opportunity to get lessons to learn how to swim. So I think it's just really commendable that he's even trying to be like more physically active and trying to learn how to swim. It's just sort of annoying when people are like, he deserves to go home because he can't swim.
yeah, I think that choosing to vote him out because he can't swim is a valid reasoning, but it's not like he can't swim, so he automatically should be the one to go home. I guess if that makes sense. So
Yeah. So, like, just being aware, like, a lot of people probably don't know how to swim or can't swim well. Like, you don't know when you're going to be on a Survivor. Maybe he had like a month's notice and, like, okay, now you need to start practicing or something. So, it's like, you can't just be like, Keith deserves to go home because he can't swim. You don't know his circumstances. You don't know. Maybe he's been practicing for years and this is how good he's at. He didn't seem to have like lessons, private lessons, like a lot of people probably do when they're younger. So it's like, I think he did a good job in the swimming aspect for like what he has.
yeah, and I think that gumption and wanting to do well is definitely something that you want to look for in people on Survivor. So I personally wouldn't be mad if they invited Keith back, even though he's the second boot, just because I feel like he has a lot of stuff left to give to Survivor, personality wise, and it's just that happened to be eclipsed by his inability to swim.
Which, yeah, it's so weird because Alyssa, I feel like both of us had Keith going like pretty far in the game. I think for the boot list, he was in my at least top 6 kind of thing. So I'm pretty sure he made finale night or he was just like 7th or 8th. So that's like really weird. Oh, he's the second person out. But like from preseason stuff, he seemed like such a likable, fun dude.
Yeah, I think I had him in my top 3, maybe. I definitely also had him in top 6, and I think that I said that he was a winner threat because of his personality and his happiness and stuff. So, mm.
Yeah, so top of the episode, we see Wendy wanting to target Kelley. Wendy blames Kelley for Reem getting voted out. Wendy, only potentially needed a few votes to get Kelley out this episode. And the episode was titled, like, we're going to battle and one will win the war. So I'm like, oh, is that premonitioning to like the Kelley versus Wendy thing happening this episode? Because it seems like they are butting heads.
I'm so angry though because Wendy's whole thing is oh, Kelley came in 4th last time, and that means that she's really dangerous. But you know who else on this tribe came in 4th place in their season? David Wright. I'm so angry because everyone's like, "Oh, Kelley's such a threat. She got so far in the game," and I'm like, "Fucking David got the same amount into the game on his first try. Kelley's first try was like not that great, and it annoys me when people only remember her performance in Second Chance because it's like, yeah, that was an amazing game that she played, but that was not the only game of Survivor that she played. And if you're looking for like strengths and weaknesses, you can see that Kelley Wentworth is not like some almighty Survivor goddess because I'm just really angry about this.
Yeah, I think that's like what we were talking about last week, and even in our like preseason videos, we're like, why like the women are going to get targeted probably before the men get targeted, and we're seeing that play out with this episode. Like Wendy and Kelley are feuding, and that's also like an interesting feud kind of thing. I don't know. And then we see the Yellow Tribe want to target Aubry, and with this scene, I was also like, this is very weird because like they're all comparing notes about, oh, Aubry's saying the exact same things to everyone, like, oh, I have you, like, let's have a dialogue, you remind me of me. It was a very like bozo, she's like so stupid kind of edit, which I'm like, if this is over 6 days and Aubry is talking to people on the tribe, like it's literally only a 9-person tribe, and it's
There's
over
only
6.
so many things you can say to people in Survivor, like to get them on your side.
Yeah, and it's like it's over 6 days. It's not like she went back to back to back from like Victoria to Julia to Gavin and said the exact same script. It's like she's trying to get in with the people. Like Aubry and Joe don't really seem to have a right-hand person versus Kelley and David because they have gone to tribal. David's really close with Rick, Devin, whatever that kind of last name. And then Kelley is really close with Lauren. It's like Aubry just wants to fit in. It's like you're giving her the bozo dumbass edit for saying these same kinds of mannerisms. Jeff says the same things every single freaking episode.
Yeah, I feel like the edit was especially unkind to Aubry. And I was a little upset about that just because, like, the edit was kind of showing how Kelley is, like, a good player and that's why she's being targeted. But it seems to me like the edit is showing, like, Aubry is a bad player, but people think that she's good. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, because it was like, oh, the ditzy, upbeat music, the clips of her speaking to everyone. And like, sure, it's interesting. Like, you're a returning player. People are probably going to talk about you behind your back and then realize, like, oh, maybe some of the conversations are very similar. But then it's also weird. Like, all we see from the new people is them talking about the returners. Like, what does Victoria really want? All we see from her is like them talking about Aubry. All we see from people on the Blue Tribe is them talking about, oh, voting Kelley Wentworth off this episode. And so it's like, I would like to see more strategy based around other things rather than the new people only talking about the returners, and we don't actually get to hear like any of their actual thought processes besides let's vote Aubry and Kelley out.
yeah.
Yeah, besides War Dog, because War Dog wanted Keith out, but like the women being targeted fourth, like you're saying, the fourth place Kelley thing, David also got fourth on Millennials versus Gen X too. People are forgetting about it. Maybe, I don't know. Like, I would say, yeah, David would have won Millennials versus Gen X if he made final three and Adam went home at fourth place. Kelley, if she went to the final three with Spencer and Tasha, I feel like, maybe there's some more dissent in there. I feel like David with Ken and Hannah, it's probably another unanimous vote like Adam winning.
Yeah. And I wonder why it is that David like isn't remembered as much because it's like, yeah, Millennials versus Gen X was before Second Chance, but like it was only one season before, right? So it's like 6 months is not that long of a time, especially in Survivordom. So
Yeah, maybe it's like, oh, a returning player season. Kelley did well on versus, oh, David's on an all newbie season and he made it far. So I don't know. That's just so weird. It's like, yes, good. David, I think, has a great social game this season. From what we've seen, we haven't really seen anything from Joe besides Joe's good at challenges. So who knows what the hell Joe is doing strategy wise out there. Maybe it's nothing again. Who knows? But David seems like he has a very, very good social game. First 2 episodes, he doesn't even have one vote cast against him. Seems like he doesn't have a target, and he made this final 2 deal with Rick. So I think that's a pretty cute alliance. Like we said last time, Wendy's loyalty when she did not want to vote against Reem, even though it probably would have been the smart thing to vote against Reem and not put your vote on like Kelley or Lauren to get people pissed off at you. So, like using Wendy, that's a smart thing that we saw this episode. And David has a number 1 in Rick, and they have that numbers final 3 deal. Not really final 3. Vote him out at final 4 or 5.
I think it's interesting because, like, from what I remember of Millennials versus Gen X, this is almost exactly the same thing that David did with Ken, where it's like they were close from the start, and it's like kind of makes me wonder, like, if David's story in this season is going to parallel his story in Millennials versus Gen X, like, what role does Rick / Devin play in that? Just because, like, to me, it seems like David is playing very much the same way he did in Millennials versus Gen X, just without all of the screaming over bugs. So
that's a really interesting comparison because Ken in Millennials versus Gen X praised the whole, like, I'm so loyal, like, coach-esque kind of mantra. And then right at the end, he cut David's throat, which I like remembering back to freshman year when it happened. It was like, no way Ken is going to vote out David when this entire season he was spewing literally loyalty, trustworthiness, like all those big words. That is his game. And then he did it versus Rick is straight up right about like, yo, dude, I will take you along, but final 4, final 5, you're dead to me. So it's an interesting juxtaposition how one person was like, oh, so loyal, cut his throat. Maybe Rick doesn't cut his throat at the end, even though he's already prefaced the alliance with like, you're dead to me after a certain point in the game.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though, because Ken put himself in a position where no matter what he did, he was going to like that vote with David was going to ruin his chances of winning, because it's like if he cuts David's throat, then his entire game, which is built on loyalty, falls apart. And if he takes David to the end, then he's going to lose to David. And so I wonder, like, if Rick / Devin, what are we going to call him? Can we just call him Rick? We're going to call him Rick. If, like, he is going to put himself in kind of a lose-lose situation in the same way. Or if I'm just, like, drawing comparisons where there aren't any. So
yeah, it'll be another like Wendell Dom situation if like they've played the whole game together and then it's very hard to distinguish like who did what kind of thing, because I feel like both Rick and David seem like very intelligent players. We only see David talk strategy with Rick. David with anyone else, it's more like, oh, what are you thinking? Oh, yeah, like I agree, good idea. Never really putting much to give to the conversation, which I think is great. Like, lay low, let the newbies think they're coming up with the plan to, like, oh, vote Kelley Wentworth out kind of thing. And you just, like, follow along at the beginning. I think David's playing a very good social game this season. Maybe that's why he's not being targeted like Kelley is. But, like, yeah, I think David can go far because he's very under the radar right now.
yeah.
So, yeah, Yellow Tribe. We see top of the episode also that they are very positive. They do that really weird dance. Everyone is super friendly. Ron is being weird like usual. And I was thinking, like, okay, next week, if Yellow Tribe goes to Tribal Council, who would be the first boot off the tribe? Like, yes, we haven't seen that much from them because they haven't gone to Tribal, but they really don't seem like there's an obvious, like, first boot. next week if they go to tribal.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because it kind of plays back to what Aubrey said last episode about how, like, I like going to tribal because then you know where people stand. And I feel like with this tribe especially, like, you don't know where anyone is standing.
Yeah,
So
because we haven't seen like, oh, the really annoying person or the less physically dominant person, or like even Julie is the older person on the tribe, but like she seems like she fits in. She's gotten a few confessionals here and there last week talking or this week about the idols and other things. So it's like even though she's like the same age as Reem, I don't know. I don't necessarily would see Julie being the first person voted out of the tribe, but maybe she is. That'd be good for my boot list because I had her going early.
yeah. Mm. I really don't know though, just because we haven't seen much of them, we don't know like how they're mm, that mm. It makes it hard for me to like say with certainty like this is how it's gonna go, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I think the one thing we do know is that there's probably no tribe swap next week. Like I was thinking in the boot list at what is it, 16? So 8 and 8. It'll probably be at 15 because Ron's thing is like the first three tribal councils at work. So you're probably not switching the tribes until this menu advantage is gone. So maybe 3 tribes at 15 or 7-7-1, and one person gets like booted off to a place or something. Who knows? Maybe they go to Extinction Island and get that. Probably not though, but so I think next week, Yellow Tribe though, I would say necessarily they're not going to tribal. Blue tribe is just Yellow has Joe, so they're going to win everything. So Ron probably won't use his menu thing, I feel like, unless somehow Yellow screws up the challenge and Joe isn't good.
Yeah, or if it's like a heavily puzzle based challenge, because it's like Joe isn't that good at puzzles. And I think it would have to be a puzzle challenge that isn't like also physical, because like that one slide puzzle that they did also involved being physically strong enough to like shove things around. But if they just had a puzzle that was all like brains, I don't think that Joe would be that helpful at all, which kind of like loses them their advantage. So mm, yeah.
Yeah, so I could see Ron not using it. If his tribe wins the reward slash immunity, then like you're not going to tribal. You cannot like steal a vote or use it as an idol. And if you won the reward with the immunity challenge, like you're not stealing your own reward kind of thing. The steal a reward thing, that's also the worst one. I don't know why you'd want to put a target on your back. I say good for him. If they don't go to tribal, he doesn't need to use it. Don't be like antsy and force a use out of something just because you want to use something. Just sit on it, keep it like it's a memento now. I say don't put a target on your back. As someone who can find advantages, just lay low if you don't need to use it.
Yeah, because I really hope that he doesn't force it because even though it would be good TV, it would be so frustrating. Because, yeah, for all of the reasons that you said, because it's like it's actually bad for his game to use an advantage that he doesn't need. So,
Yeah, especially this early. So, speaking of advantages, we had a large idol hunt this episode. We see Gavin and Eric looking. They're saying how big the area is. It's interesting because we also see Julie, Julia, and Victoria talk about looking for idols and like men always finding the idols, but why not the females? So it's very interesting because same thing like last season with Angelina bringing up all of the idol statistics and women finding idols. It's interesting how this common theme is coming up both seasons because the people this season did not watch season 37. So I think that's interesting.
yeah, I kind of like it though when like seasons that were shot back to back are thematically similar because it means that like the fans who are watching like are having thoughts and are thinking critically about Survivor, which like to me is super great because so many people seem to think that Survivor is just like not at all strategic. And yeah,
Yeah, so We don't see anyone from the Yellow Tribe find an idol, so we presume that the Yellow Tribe's idol is still out there. On the Blue Tribe, we see Lauren talking, and I liked how the editing was because it's like so many people were going out. You really didn't know who was going to necessarily find the idol until Lauren starts talking in her long rant, and then it's like, okay, maybe Lauren's gonna find it. She talks about how much she loves Parvati and Kelley, and then literally Kelley gets a flashback to her season, finding and using her two idols. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah. I think it's interesting how Lauren, like the whole time she was like looking for this idol, was talking about how Kelley like inspired her and how she was so happy to find this idol on Kelley's tribe. And then she goes, "But I'm not going to tell Kelley about it." Like, like that made me think things.
What things?
I don't know, just like I think it's interesting how these movies are like being very intentional about not letting the old players drag them along. And I think that Lauren not telling Kelley about the idol that she found is kind of the same as like Rick telling David, like, "Hey, I will slit your throat," because it's like the newbies have this like self-awareness about their position in relationship to the returnees, but at the same time all of this stuff about people saying like, "Oh, they've had their time to shine, oh, we need someone new to win this game," like it almost seems like when someone insists like, "Oh, this isn't going to happen, this isn't going to happen," and then it happens, like when they keep insisting like a newbie needs to win, a needs to win, I feel like that's almost setting it up for a returnee to win again.
That's interesting because I like Lauren. Like she found an idol, so the female idol finding statistics go up. And I think she just seems very intelligent. Like you're saying, they are very self-aware, Lauren and Rick. And like she wants to keep the idol to herself, not telling Kelley at the moment. It will be interesting in the future if Lauren does tell Kelley that she has an idol, because I could see that happening. It's like, oh, a few weeks, days down the line, you're both still in the game, maybe pushed up against the wall and you need something to happen with the idol, you could tell her. Or like, oh, you're just bored and you want to like make your I don't want to say idol, but like Kelley is Lauren's idol kind of thing. So now you're getting the words confused, but like make your idol proud that like you're the protege and you are better, like you found an idol but your teacher didn't.
Yeah, like the whole like student outpacing the master thing. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so I think good for Lauren finding this hidden immunity idol. I think she should keep it for herself. I think, like, good thing we didn't see an idol play this episode. If she ends up playing it for Kelley in the future, I was like, why would you want to save such a large threat? I think she should not play it for Kelley in the future.
I think it would be interesting to play it for Kelley because then Kelley is indebted to her, and then if she gets to the finals with Kelley, she then has this thing like, "You wouldn't even be here without me." And I think that would be an interesting kind of trump card to like have a returning player in your pocket. And when you keep Kelley around, you also keep a bigger threat around, which is something else they talked about this episode. Where it's
Yeah,
like keeping big threats around is good because then they're easy to dispose of.
Yeah, I guess it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see if people actually care. Like, oh, the only reason you're here is because they played the idol for you, or it's sort of like a like pat on your back, like thank you. Because like a lot of people are only in the final three because an idol was played for them, or make it to the next week because an idol was played for them. Like Steven or Hannah had an idol played for them, and it's like no one really, or at least we don't see people using that, because it's sort of like a jab in the back, sort of like Wendell take it, or like Wendell giving Laurel the immunity challenge win, even though Wendell was like, I said it first kind of thing. It's like if you hang that over someone's head, like the only reason you're here is because I saved you, like that sort of leaves a bad taste in people's mouth, versus like it was strategy to save you kind of thing. And then But you always see people who mess up right at the end and bring the wrong person to the final two and then lose. We saw that with Celebrity Big Brother. So, you know.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. I don't think that Lauren will play the idol for Kelley, but I still think that playing the idol for Kelley wouldn't be an unforgivably bad move.
Yeah. It depends what the tribe's viewpoints are. Because if I were like a returnee in the final three, you have to say the things like I was had a target on my back since day one kind of thing. I'm still here 39 days later, you know, that kind of thing, which is like necessarily harder than like, oh, I'm a newbie, necessarily didn't have a target on my back at the beginning because all of the returnee players took all the heat off the newbie players.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because if a returnee does make it to the end, they almost like have a better argument without even making an argument because especially if it was Kelley or Aubry because they've been targeted from the beginning. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So immunity challenge. Of course, yellow tribe is ahead again. Then it's tied. The ring toss, I'm like, I don't know why you would send Keith in, but like maybe they were trying to be friendly, or Keith wanted to step up and try to like be the hero in the challenge. Joe and Eric literally like hit the target every single time. During this episode, I was really confused. I thought Eric was Chris at the beginning. I'm like, this is not the same person who was here last week. And then I was really confused because I didn't remember Chris's name again. But now I do know Chris. He's the one that looks like Dan. Eric hits the final shot. People online are saying that Joe did that on purpose to let Eric hit the final target. So then people will be like, oh my God, you know, Eric, you won the challenge for us. But I feel like I personally would be like, that doesn't, it makes sense, yes, but in the heat of the moment, are you as Joe really thinking like, oh my God, I cannot hit the final target, I don't want all the like hoo-ha roo-hoo-rah around me, let's let Eric hit the final target while you're so like adrenaline filled and like going to win the challenge?
Yeah, I think that's giving Joe way too much credit. Like,
Yeah. So I'm like, Joe probably was just being friendly and switched off right at the end. And it's like, thinking back to the challenge, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, Eric won the challenge. I'd be like, I would remember Eric and Joe both doing very well at the challenge.
yeah, and I think Eric might be someone that Joe wants to keep around for that reason because it's like I'm not sure if Eric is comparable physically, but he's at least closer than some people. And so if Joe needs someone to like win individual immunities to take heat off of him, then he needs Eric around. So.
Yeah, Eric's a big dude. Yeah,
He is.
so I mean, so at the end of the challenge, we see War Dog. He has that confessional at the end, which is always, like we've said, the red herring. Whenever they're like, okay, this person's going home right after the immunity challenge before the commercial break, it's usually to throw people off. But this time, War Dog is like, all the target is on Wendy or Kelley. Maybe let's do a different thing in Keith. So War Dog has this plan to vote Keith out. The whole strength and challenges thing, the argument makes a lot of sense. You keep Kelley because she is a bigger target, which, yeah, definitely makes sense. I think maybe the logic is a little skewed if they're thinking, because typically a tribe swap happens after 2 votes. So you think, okay, there's 16 people left, tribe swap 8-8. Let's keep Kelley around because we will probably be in the minority and then Kelley would be a bigger target than us. But if we're seeing how things are going and there's a tribe swap at 15, it doesn't really make sense because you have tribes of 5 and then you need to be in the minority. So 2 of you, and then it'd be like you and Kelley, and then Kelley would be the target kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's excellent, like thinking ahead. But I think also one of the things that they could have or should have mentioned was that, like, if you get tribe swapped onto a tribe with someone who is like weaker physically, like it's even harder to like make up for that. Because like in the challenge, Keith had like seven other people to help him like in the swimming. And he still ended up being like a burden because of his inability to swim. And it's like if you get swapped onto a tribe with five people and one of them doesn't know how to swim and you have a water challenge, like that's gonna really hurt you. So
Yeah, so I think like it makes sense because if you get swapped onto a tribe next week with Keith, it doesn't really help you that like, oh, you have someone who's loyal if you're going to keep losing the challenges and you're already probably going to be in the minority on a 5-person tribe. So it would make more sense if it's like, oh, an 8-person tribe, and then there's sort of like an easy boot of the less physically fit person. But yeah, I think either way, keeping Kelley, it does make a lot of sense, like the meat shield kind of thing. And it's still so early in the game. It's not like it's final 5 and you're still with Kelley and the 3 other returnee players. So it's like, okay, keep her around. And like she's loyal right now, like she has no other options. And they are aware that she will flip at some point in time, so to be wary of it. So it's like I think their logic for the Keith vote out makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I think it's interesting though because David was so gung ho about voting off Kelley when it's like, do you, a returnee, really want to like start the pattern of voting off returnees? Like he seems to think that Kelley is going after him, but there's nothing in the edit to me that implies that Kelley thinks David is a threat or Kelley immediately wants to vote out David. So to me, I think it's interesting because David voting off Kelley could be like setting up his own doom.
Yeah, like that's what I wrote down. I was like, David should want to keep Kelley around, I feel like, because like you're saying, once one returnee goes home, it sort of starts a domino effect and people are thinking like, oh, they voted out a returnee player, let's get them all out. So like in seasons where there's winners and like normal returnee players, we see the winners go home because people are like, they've had their time, we don't want them to win a second time, let's vote them out kind of thing. So it's sort of like this, these people have played their time, let's vote them out. So I just feel like David, it's same thing in Millennials versus Gen X when David and Zeke started butting heads like way too early at final 8. And it's too early, I think, for David and Kelley to go for each other. We haven't seen anything from Joe and Aubry and where their heads are at, whether working together or not. But I think it's just too early. If David actually voted out Kelley this early, it'd be harder for David, I feel like. But I also feel so bad for Keith. The Chris and Keith scene was so cute. I was like, what an unlikely pair. I think voting Keith out was probably only really detrimental for Chris, maybe Wendy. And I think War Dog said some interesting things when he's like, he wants his plan to work, but he wants others to feel like they made up the plan or like it's their plan and War Dog isn't steamrolling everyone else.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because like we saw last season a lot people who like came up with the plan ended up being targets. So I think that War Dog's like strategy of like letting other people like kind of like make the plan or like gently guiding them to the plan because like he would bring up Keith's name. He would be like, "Well, what do you think about Keith?" And I think that that's different than being like, "We need to vote out Keith." So
It's like Angelina.
yeah, that's who I was thinking of. So
Yeah, so I feel tribal council, feel so bad for Keith. I think it's, yeah, challenge performance and trust versus Kelley, who's strong and would probably flip on you later. Either way, they were like, it's going to be a blindside. Also, feel bad for Keith. He thought it would be a blindside of Kelley. Nay, nay, not today. Not what happens. Keith, when he left, he was like, y'all think you're going to win challenges now kind of thing. I was like, what? And then so weird at the end when he is choosing whether to go to Extinction or not. I'm like, did you just loop the audio? Why is he saying this over and over and over? And then a cliffhanger happened. I'm like, this better not be The Bachelor now, where every single episode ends with a cliffhanger. It makes sense edit-wise because now people will want to watch next week so they see what the choice is. But, like, I was done.
yeah, and I think also It's interesting because Keith's not choosing yet kind of leaves us with a double cliffhanger because Reem says if no one else comes, then I might have to quit. And so Keith's choice affects two people being on Extinction Island, not just one. So I think that might be why they cliff hanged. Is there a verb for that? But why they did that. But I also was like, wow, this audio is very redundant.
So Keith is a mastermind strategic genius then. If he quits the game, then Reem will quit the game and he helps everyone else's chances. I think it would have been funny TV if Kelley and Reem were at Extinction Island together. Keith and Reem, I would literally want to like die if I were Keith. I don't know. It's like 24/7 with someone and you're just hanging out cold. You have nothing and you just have to big chill with each other. I'd be like, this is so annoying. At least with challenges and 8 other people on a tribe, you have things to do. But I don't know. They can practice swimming all day now, I guess.
Yeah, I do wonder what if Keith will do that while he's on Extinction Island because it's like you have a lot of water and not a lot to do. It would be really funny if like he practiced swimming all while he was on Extinction Island, and then when he came back, he could like swim really well, and it was like a glow up moment.
Yeah, he becomes like a super great swimmer.
He becomes the Joe of swimming.
Yeah, that would be so funny. I think I don't know why like Keith can maybe he was confused when he was reading the two signs and thought it was like a trick question, but I'm like I feel like you have to, if you're given the opportunity, you have to at least check out the left hand path and pick up the torch, even though, like Reem, we saw her too long Extinction Island stunt. It was like 5 minutes waste of my time seeing her complain and moan for 5 minutes. I'm like, fast forward. But yeah, I think Keith should take the opportunity because you never know where it'll end up. You don't know if it's a challenge. You don't know it's Extinction Island. It's just another chance at the game. And you get to hang out with Reem.
Yeah, so exciting! Spending time with Reem.
But, like, yeah, I don't know. I think every single episode, if they're showing 5 minutes of Extinction Island, let's, like,
Let's
have
not.
less of Reem. Let's have more of Keith then.
Let's have no one. Let's just not constantly talk about Extinction Island.
Oh, she's just like, oh, dude, it's so cold out. Oh, man, it's so cold out. Oh, and then she says, like, dude and man so much. I'm like, stop it. Use no non-gendered pronouns in your speech.
Yeah, I also think it's like it would be interesting for us as the viewers if they didn't show us who was still on Extinction Island, because then it would be like when they come back, you would be like, wait, so and so quit. Wait, this person's here. I thought they would have quit by now, etc., etc. So,
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because, like, the people playing the game right now don't know what necessarily has happened on Extinction Island. So it's probably cool for them to watch and be like, oh, this is what's happening. Like, Reem's been hanging out here all alone. Reem quits. Oh my gosh. Like, that's so crazy, kind of thing. Like, if you voted someone out and you didn't know necessarily when they actually left the game, like, watching the Extinction Island bits would be really cool.
yeah. But I don't think it's like worthwhile to spend 5 minutes of every episode, especially because we still don't see that much of the new players. And like, I would like to hear about people before they go to Extinction Island, not after.
Yeah, so I think next week it'll be interesting. If Yellow Tribe goes to Tribal, it will be very weird. Who's the logical first boot? If you all have any ideas, let us know. If Blue Tribe goes to Tribal, it's very, very iffy for Kelley. She needs to do something to get the target off her back because if Blue goes to Tribal again, I really don't see anyone in the majority, which is like David, Rick, War Dog, Chris, those people voting one of themselves out, and they're probably not voting Wendy out now. So it's really only between Lauren and Kelley.
Yeah, so I wonder if they'll do a vote split because they have enough people, and then that would be interesting. But yeah, I'm excited for next week. I think that the game is starting to pick up a little, so
Yeah, let us know who you think will go home if blue or yellow tribe goes to tribal, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.